of this state when it comes to education. I'm here on behalf of the governor, who chairs the Oregon Education Investment Board, Dr. Henry and Hannah Vandering, as you heard, are members. And together with the governor, they will be developing the governor's recommended budget to the legislature for education in the upcoming biennium, the 2013 to 2015 two-year period. Historically, just to give you some context, historically, the way a governor develops his recommended budget to the legislature is to work behind closed doors with his policy advisor and budget staff to do the best he can and present that budget then to the legislature. We've engaged, this governor this time has engaged in an unprecedented level of public input into the development of these priorities. First and foremost, he established, with the support of the legislature, an education investment board to help bring public input from the 12 members, as well as the public deliberation that they undertake on a monthly basis, bring public input into the process. That board and its chief education officer set up these public forums, eight of them, plus a webinar around the state to receive public input. He appointed a 5-member citizen, again unpaid, education funding team to provide him with advice. And over the next month, he'll be taking the results of all of that input and attempting to establish priorities for the roughly $7.5 billion that the state will spend in the upcoming biennium on education, early education through higher education. It's a really challenging problem, right? How do you prioritize those investments to achieve the best outcomes for kids? And it's a particularly great challenge when times are as tight as they are and budgets are as constrained as they are, when the system has been cut to the extent that it has, cuts in ways that have increased class sizes, that have reduced student learning time, that have meant cuts to programs that help engage and inspire and empower kids, layoffs to staff and faculty, and increasing cost to students associated with higher education, all of which these trends that have just been pushing, I really think, at the disadvantage of students over the last several decades, but last 4 years in particular. So in the face of all that, the governor has said part of what the state needs in order to meet its high goals for educational attainment are significantly greater public investments in public education. And that is going to require a number of strategies. Among those strategies must include reducing the cost that the state spends on healthcare and incarceration, so we can invest those dollars in the front end on education, and he is leading efforts in that regard. Part of the strategy is to reduce some of the underlying cost drivers within education that don't contribute to student success, but need to be tackled in order to put more money in the classrooms. Part of the strategy is to build and lead a coalition around revenue reform to produce a more stable and adequate funding system in the state. And part of the strategy, in order to build confidence in the public for all of those things, and confidence behind the idea of greater levels of public investment in education, is to target something in the neighborhood of 1% of our state's education budget on concrete, specific, outcomes-oriented investments in our education system. So whereas historically the state has written a check to school districts and community colleges and universities and early learning providers, and they've gone off and done, oftentimes, amazing work, the governor has proposed, and wants very much your feedback on, the notion that the state would dedicate a small amount of its education budget in specific targeted strategies to produce better results through helping transform the system into a higher functioning system. The funding team recommendations that some of you may have seen and are available here and that we're asking for your thoughts on and that Whitney will describe are ideas about the ways that the state could target somewhere in the neighborhood of 1% of its education budget towards strategies that will improve student outcomes and in turn improve public confidence in the idea of that investing in education will produce better results. So we're asking for your thoughts about that, your thoughts about your own priorities for education investment. Really appreciate and value what you have to say here, and I think with that, I'll turn it over to one of the Chief Education Officer, Rudy Cruz Policy Advisors, Whitney Grubbs, to talk a little more about the specific investment strategies that have been proposed, but then we'll spend the balance of tonight hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Again, I'm Whitney Grubbs. I work in the Chief Education Officer's office, and I want to talk a little bit about the strategic investments that the education funding team has recommended to the governor and that are encapsulated in a larger paper that they produced that's over on the table for you to look through. The education funding team, as Ben said, was a group of volunteer citizens that came together and spent almost 100 hours working on thinking through what are the sort of best strategies that we could use in our state to improve outcomes for students. Dr. Crew, who came to Oregon at the beginning of July, became quickly engaged in that conversation and brought us a lot of expertise from his long career in education and his passion for serving kids. And we arrived at 5 different specific initiatives that I'll talk through really quickly. So the first one is around early childhood. This has been a passion of the governor's for many, many years. As a doctor, it's an area that he thinks really resonates in terms of prevention strategies, and how can we really expect our system to perform well if we're not able to come in and get kids ready to learn before they even arrive in kindergarten. So the governor has appointed an early learning council who is under the OEIB, and they have been working on strategies for really improving the delivery of services to young children through a redesign of our early learning system. There's some more information in the longer packet about the different strategies, but it's just a crucial and key investment in our state. Anyone who's an educator knows that when a student comes to kindergarten, if they're not able to engage in the learning process, it takes a long time and a lot of focus to get them up to speed, and that if we're able to sort of get them on track at the front end, it really helps with their experience all along the education pathway. So the second strategy is really to create an intense focus in our state on reading. As all of you know, reading is an essential gateway skill. It really forms the foundation of the knowledge that students need in order to be able to access higher and higher levels of content as they move forward in the system. And in our state, in the last year, 28% of our third graders were not able to read at grade level at the end of third grade. If you look at our students of color or English language learners, that number jumps up by 10 or more percentage points. So this is just really a place where there are pockets of excellence in the state, lots of different strategies that are being used with success, but that we just really need to dial in and ensure that there's not a student that we're not serving, and there's not a student that's moving forward in our state without having received some extra attention if they're not able to achieve the reading benchmark. So this initiative in particular would look at what kinds of strategies are working across the state. What are the sort of early intervention programs that are working? Where do we have opportunities to extend the day or expand learning opportunities for students? Ensure that they have access through libraries and schools and learning centers and early childhood to books and computers and curriculum. How do we make sure that families and parents are really engaged and have information about the importance of reading with children from the very earliest of ages, and how can we sort of use the resources in our state to really focus on reading. The third strategy, which is called Demand for Learning, is really about how we create within our system a real strong link between the parent and the education system. How can we ensure that parents are really engaged partners? And that how can we make sure that even parents that are not native English speakers, even parents that are living in poverty, have ways to access and really become integrally involved in their child's education. This is a strategy, I think, that is very valuable study out of the Harvard Research Center put a dollar amount of $1,000 in value on an engaged parent. That's how much it would cost the school district to provide the same level of learning that an engaged parent does just through their day-to-day activities. So this strategy is one that would really help us focus on engaging families in the education process. The fourth one, professional core of teachers, is just crucially important, and I think not only important to improving outcomes for students in our state, but really important to changing the culture that we have, to be one that is absolutely supportive and celebrates the hard work that teachers and leaders and educational staff do on a daily basis. So this idea is that in our state, we would like to develop 4 to 6 regional centers that would be focused on improving teaching and learning. And by improving, I really mean by elevating the profession, by allowing teachers many opportunities for mentorship, for collaboration, for refining their craft, for engaging as researchers and scholars, making sure that when we talk about educators in our state, we're talking about educators all across the continuum, from the folks that provide care for our young Oregonians, early childhood educators, to K-12 educators, to community college faculty, up through university, and that we begin to really build upon the knowledge and skill base of those different sectors to really support the kind of education that our students need in the 21st century. The last priority, essential skills for global success, I think is a very exciting opportunity to look at, are there some models in the state that we can support that can really ignite some innovation, excitement around the transition from high school into post-secondary. There are some examples around the state, many examples actually, of community colleges, universities, and school districts coming together, working on breaking down the barriers between those systems and coming up with ways that students can earn college credit while in high school, that can accelerate through to college on a faster pace if they're ready, that can provide different kinds of experiences for learners and share resources. This is also a place in which we are interested in investing in some STEM lab schools that would provide a strong connection between the workforce needs and economy and the education that we're offering to our young students. And this is also a place where I think we want to shift our thinking away from a very narrow focus on standardized tests and a narrow focus on some content curriculum, to beginning to expand, to think about, in a 21st century environment, what are the real knowledge and skills that students need. We need them to have really high levels of critical thinking skills, the ability to solve problems, to apply their knowledge, to research, to work collaboratively. And those are skills that we need to very much focus on in order to ensure that when our students leave high school and enter community college or an institution of higher education or the world of work, that they're able to perform successfully and that we're not having to spend a lot of time doing remediation and getting students just up to speed. So those are the 5 initiatives, and I want to give you all a chance to talk, but first I'm going to let our 2 board members say a few brief words, and I want to thank you so much again for having us.
I can read the room, you're tired of listening and you want to talk, I can tell. But I just want to say a couple of things, and I will be brief. I was here in January, and in January we came out and we were asking about your priorities for education, what you wanted to see happen. And you gave us some marching orders. We heard about funding, we heard about class size, we heard about a well-rounded education for kids. Now you have a funding team report in front of you. You just heard about some of the priorities, but I would encourage you, how many of you have read the funding team report? Okay, please read it. There are other components in there, and we need your feedback about all of those. For these priorities, if you're looking at those, so if you give some feedback, that would be great, so we can know where you're at. But What I've experienced over the last month going to these meetings is the disinvestment in public education has had a huge impact on our students, on our educators, and on our state. We are not providing all of the activities and the opportunities for the students that I believe Oregonians want. We have the quality education model. It talks about what it takes to provide an education that 90% of our students would reach benchmark, and we're nowhere close to that. But what I would like to hear from you is, what are your hopes and dreams? What can we do? What do you believe this board, and there are 12 of us that sit on this board, and I don't believe we can do anything, and I think I said this last year, to really change public education in Oregon. The board can't do it. It's got to be a commitment from Oregonians. And in order to get that commitment, I believe that we have to listen to you and we have to hear what it is you want for our students. What is your commitment to help us get there? And I see students in the room. It's great to see students in the room because you are the future. You are the ones who are going to be sitting up here making these decisions, and it'll be really short. It goes fast. But we need to make sure that you're prepared for that, and we need to do a better job as adults in making decisions for our students. I was at Marshfield High School. I saw several things that I haven't seen at other schools across the state. So in Coos Bay, Marshfield High School has its own radio station. It has a nationally renowned newspaper for the high school. They have a program for technology that is, I've not seen one where the educators are working with the students to make sure they have access to computers at home by getting, they're actually getting donations and then rebuilding the computers so the students have that experience. Lots of opportunities for our students that we're not seeing across the state. How do we get there? What is it that you would like to see in our schools? And what can we do together to make sure that we get there? So I look forward to hearing from you tonight. And I also look forward to you continuing to be engaged in the process. Because if what you're saying is not what we're doing, then you need to hold us accountable. We hold educators accountable every day, and we should, but we need to hold the adults accountable, all of us accountable for doing the right thing for our students. So again, I thank you for being here. I look forward to hearing what you have to say and in your commitment to work with us throughout the next several years. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Samuel Henry. I want to follow up on the point from my colleague. And it is good to be here, even though, what was it, January when we were here last, and saw some of you. I want to encourage us, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but this is participatory democracy. And I know we sometimes talk about it, and it seems like an abstract, and yes, I was a social studies teacher. But this is participatory democracy where you get a chance to have at the priorities, have at the information that we have put together before it goes to the governor, before it becomes the budget. Now, obviously, there's some other intervening factors here, but this is a really crucial piece of what we do, and I want to emphasize that. The second point I want to emphasize is that one of the things the OEIB has been about is about addressing social justice. I taught a lesson yesterday, and I warned you in my day job, I'm a professor at Portland State University, and my topic yesterday for our graduate teachers in education was about poverty. We have tremendous issues around poverty here in the state of Oregon. And around, I know we get all the attention in Bend about the affluence and the people who moved in and retirees who are doing well. But there's also, when you start to break the data down, there are a lot of kids that come to school hungry. There are a lot of adolescents that stay in school hungry. There are a lot of folks that go to the community college and they have to make the choice between tuition or some of the meals they're going to eat. And we, as a group of people, need to address this in some different kinds of ways. We need to call attention to it, and we need to focus on it, because it shouldn't be happening here. It shouldn't happen anywhere, but it shouldn't be happening here. We also have increasing numbers of children of color across the state. The Hispanic group is the fastest growing group in the state of Oregon. I'm sure you've seen the demographics behind that. but we haven't adjusted the way we teach and the way we operate, and we need to think about some of that. We also need to increase the access to post-secondary education. And I know that's been a particular issue here in the central part of the state. It's also been an issue in the eastern part of the state. And we've got to come up with some better and some more creative solutions to that, because no one who wants to go on to post-secondary education should be denied because of geography or because there are other boundaries placed on them or barriers to their access. And finally, as I was talking to some of my colleagues here from, I think, the Jefferson County Health Department, we're about the total child, the total adolescent, the total adult. And so this includes social services and health. And that's what the OEIB has been about, and about conversation with that. And that continues to be a mainstream theme. Some of you may recognize me from my checkered past, where I was chair of the Oregon Commission on Children and Families. We have to do a better job of talking with each other, of preparing things that help all members of our community. And so we're here, and I'm going to shut up so you can talk, but we're here to listen to you. But please keep in mind that we are here to listen. There are some things that we're going to have to send someplace else. We are not the state legislature. We do not pass laws. We really don't. We make recommendations. The governor makes a recommendation. So my advice to you is, first of all, obviously vote. The second part is to keep up with your state legislators. Let them know what you're thinking about all these issues, even as we leave here tonight. And the third part is, this is something that we do together. This is community work. This is why we're all here, why we gave up, at least I gave up the first night of the NBA. We're here because we think this is important. And we are all here to listen, these folks here, to listen to you, and we appreciate the work you've done just to come tonight and what you're going to ask for us and from us in terms of where we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Just a reminder about the public testimony. You each have 2 minutes to speak. When Seth gives you the 30-second warning, please think of your neighbors. We have a lot of people who would like to address the board tonight, and we want to hear from everyone. And just a footnote, next week's OEIB meeting, a report will be submitted to the full board and governor that will be an overview of all the recommendations that you all have made, and all these proceedings have been recorded so the governor and others can listen to the testimony themselves as well. Thank you.
Johnny Corbin, Carla Gomez, Rachel Bacon, and Karen Steiner, please.
Good evening. Just to let you start off with, I'll be introducing a bill to our local state representatives for second career educators. And when you see that bill come through the legislature, I hope you support it. The academic elite, the governor, and the OEIB are ripping off taxpayers, students, parents, and our youth. This is a very strong statement, and I will explain. First, the governor approved that the position of state superintendent of school for a salary of $280,000, and as I understand it, this is a part-time position. What really rubbed the taxpayers even more is a 3-year contract for $540,000 for a new U of O president. Not only are these salaries unjustified, but Governor Kitzhaber is telling the people of Oregon that the U of O president is worth more than the president of the United States. The OEIB and the state has formed an early childhood development program. This program on the surface looks really good, but again, it's a rip-off of taxpayers. It has been documented by grade 3 test scores show no increase when good curriculum is implemented. What the program, as I have researched, is no more than a taxpayer-funded daycare program. When children fit into such a program, percentage is quite small, and let the parents pay for that program. Maybe some children are ready for the program and some may not be. The primary grade teachers do a pretty good job, and they need to have more help, so we need to enhance the reader program. The 40-40-20 program is a real joke. The governor wants this plan and wants to increase the graduation requirements, and it's not going to work. The answer is to have a dual track system, academic and non-academic.
2 minutes.
The vocational classes are a great source of these programs, and that's the way it needs to be divided between academic and vocational. So at the end, the philosophy for the whole education program really needs to change. Academics are really messing up our system, and for most academics have no clue how to fix it.
Good evening, I'm Carla Gomez, and I want to thank you for attending this community forum hosted at our school. This is Rachel Bacon, and we are both school counselors here at Lincoln Middle School.
My 13th school year as a school counselor. Over the years, needs of the students and parents have changed. They continue to become more complex, not only for Pilot Youth, but for all schools in the nation. As school counselors, we aid our students in dealing with these complex issues in order for them to successfully concentrate on their education and their future.
Annually, we make over 1,000 individual student and parent contacts regarding issues that stand in the way of student learning. We connect students to academic, emotional, social, and mental health resources. We plan and coordinate student participation programs including Girl Circle and Boys Council, grief and loss and anger management groups, high-risk youth mentor programs, Deschutes County mental health resources, extracurricular programs, Camp Sunrise, and many other programs as well. And we think this appointing action directly addresses the demand for learning initiative that you pointed out by engaging community and parents in breaking down barriers to academic success.
Each year, we also conduct ACT testing and ACT test interpretation for over 208 graders to get them on the road ready for high school and college courses. We also engage over 208 graders per year in training in Oregon Career Information Systems to introduce them to career planning.
Many Oregon schools, including this school, are already understaffed according to the student-to-counselor ratio recommended by the American School Counseling Association. Yet Rachel and I think of many students who would not have made it to graduation without counselors' interventions. Counselors are an integral part of the puzzle for student success. We should be an integral part of the vision for education funding as well. In other words, if we want to reach 40-40-20 by the year 2025, Oregon needs to significantly increase the number of school counselors providing counseling services to students in K-12 schools.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, members and representatives of OEIB. My name is Karen Steiner, and I'm an 8th grade mathematics teacher here at High Desert Middle School in Bend. This summer, I had the pleasure of participating on a work group with 12 distinguished teachers convened by Chalkboard. Our task was to develop a vision to support and strengthen teaching and learning in Oregon's K-12 classrooms. Recently, we published a report with recommendations. We teachers recommend that we ensure there is a quality teacher in every classroom to impact student learning. We must also radically improve our student preparation programs and improve the professional development for practicing teachers. We must provide meaningful and ongoing evaluations for teachers so that we may improve our teaching practices and increase student achievement. We must support programs that recruit diverse teachers and train current teachers in diversity throughout Oregon. We must support leadership opportunities for teachers in order to attract and retain quality teachers in Oregon classrooms. We must also compensate them appropriately. Ultimately, we must help others to learn through collaboration and networking to learn from each other's successes and also their challenges. Personally, I would propose that the OEIB change the ExxonMobil advertisement on TV that speaks to the National Math and Science Initiative, which states its significant student achievement. The OEIB could say something like this: just imagine our potential if other states join us. Let's raise our student success. Let's invest in our teachers and inspire our students. Let's solve this. Thank you very much.
Raymond Venquist, Tim Rush, Julie Bigler, and Sally Jacobson, please.
First of all, thank you for coming to Central Oregon. It's nice to know that you people believe the road runs both ways. It's not easier to get over there than here. Thank you for coming. I'm Lynn Lundquist. I represent the Center for Innovative School Facilities. I'm on the board member there. When I was both Speaker of the House and as well as when I was President of the Oregon Business Association, I had a great opportunity to promote education because it's my passion. But first of all, I want to throw you a little curveball. Maybe it's appropriate, and it's not NBA, but World Series has got over. I want to start talking not about education, but about Gettysburg and our interstate highway system. General Lee, when he went to Gettysburg, did it for three reasons: roads, roads, and roads. It was an investment that had been made. It was critical. He didn't succeed, as it turned out, but at least that's why he went to Gettysburg. When my wife and I drove 8,000 miles to east and back just very recently, it was, you know, you'd have to stare you right in the face. Without the interstate highway system, this country's in world order. And somebody back when we had World War II, not today, we are the recipients of that great investment. So I just want to point out the fact that that is what this is all about. Okay. I'm sorry, I wasn't enough of the microphone, I guess. So these investments are essential, and they're just as essential for education as they are for roads and highways.
30 seconds.
We asked you to consider, and we being the Center for School Facilities, a small investment under $1 million to design and implementing a pre-K-20 prioritizing strategy that integrates the state's capital investment in education infrastructure and assures that we deploy existing resources in a more efficient and effective manner. Now, the facilities are not a big part of your agenda. I understand that. But I think this is critical. Specifically, we're calling for first, a government-appointed task force to examine capital investment in 21st century learning and recommend to you, the OEIB, structured programs and funding tools that will allow Oregon education organizations to respond to the forthcoming designs that are needed in the 21st century education delivery. This has cost about $125,000. Secondly, we call for the state to implement a pre-K-20 facility information database hub for safety, health, and energy savings. This will enable local, regional, and state level leaders to set priorities, develop policy, plan, and make decisions that integrate pre-K and K-12, community colleges, and universities. Priorities that reflect the schools of the future and integrate facilities in an effective and efficient PK-20 system.
3 minutes, sir.
He's done, is that what he said? I couldn't hear 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I couldn't hear him, I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you have written comments.
Hello, my name is Tim Russ. I'm Executive Director of the Mountain Historic Family Relief Nursery here in Bend, member of the Oregon Association of Relief Nurseries, also a member of the Child Care and Early Learning Work Group, been involved with the local commission for about 10 years and involved with a very strong local effort to organize the early childhood system here in Central Oregon. So I guess first off, I just really want to reemphasize I'm sure what you already know, which is the risk of abuse is very high in early childhood. 0 to 3 represents about a third of all child abuse victims. This is a really important population to pay attention to. We can make a tremendous difference. Relief nurseries in and of themselves can reduce the risk of abuse by about 68%. So I just want to emphasize the importance of investments like that, especially in terms of the social emotional development. We just did a fundraising video for us, and we had the former speaker of the Department of Oregon Corrections talk, Max Williams. He's now the CEO of the Oregon Community Foundation. Frankly, for about 2 minutes, he sounded like a relief nursery director. So I think we had a strong support on preventing child abuse in the early years. And then also the economic development aspect of early childhood. 30 seconds. Oh my gosh, that went fast. So I guess that's what you already know. Just emphasize that these local hubs that are coming, we're really concerned about the administrative burden to those, and that they may draw services, draw money from direct services. Family resource managers, we want to make sure that contracts are not going to agencies for work that we already do. Really concerned about the tight, loose methodology in terms of contracts. I want to make sure that there's adequate room for nonprofits that are leveraging funds. We leverage our state grant by over 100%. So the wording of those contracts is really important to being able to leverage. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you get the same pay going back over the door. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Julie Bidler. I'm the director of the Children's Mission Foundation, which is a nonprofit whose whole mission is to identify students having vision problems. I've been working on behalf of children since 1989 and in a variety of capacities from state PTA boards and parents and etc. This is one piece that I have to say has got my attention